Welcome to another episode of the Girl About the Globe podcast. Today I'm joined by Afarin Bellisario, who's author of the book Silence Whispers. It's a book inspired by women who had fought and continue to fight for Iranian democracy. If the country of Iran has ever intrigued you, this episode is for you. Stay tuned. Welcome to Girl About the Globe, a podcast for you, the solo female traveller, empowering women to travel solo with maximum adventure, minimum impact. Welcome to another episode of the Girl About the Globe podcast. Today I'm joined by Afarin Bellisario, author of the book Silence Whispers, a book inspired by women who have fought and continue to fight for Iranian democracy. Welcome, Afarin. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Before we delve into Iran, can you just tell us a bit more about you and where your journey first began?
Yes, of course. The journey began in Tehran, Iran. That's where I was born and raised. And then that journey took me to America. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I basically came in as a student. I first studied in New York University, and then at MIT. And then never left Boston. It's a New England. The weather is not very good, but there are lots of other things that are good in Boston. So I live in Boston now, and have been here for many years, for 40 years or something. So that's my journey. I spent most of my career in high tech. I work for big corporations and small corporations. Now I mentor young ventures out of MIT mostly, and help them with their journey as well. So, and part of my journey in life has been that I worked internationally, so I traveled a lot, and I love to travel. So I am all on board with the interest of your viewers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, travel's such an education, isn't it?
Yes,
You have to actually go to the country to really get the reality of it. So that's why I
absolutely.
really like your book, because it draws from your upbringing on Tehran, and it's the tale of courage and hope. Why do you think it's important to get this message out?
Well, I mean, we live in a bad world, and just simple wars. There are lots of bad stuff going on, especially in Iran, and especially for young people and young women, young men as well. There's a lot of pressure on them, and there's a lot of um, oppression, and so it's in this time we really have to hope for the best and have courage. And I mean, my hero Gohar says, fear is no excuse for being a coward. You have to do whatever you have to do. And it's especially for women, because they are subject of violence and oppression wherever they are. But that's what I thought, that that message has to come out, and has to come out from all of us, not from me, but from all of us. And help younger generation, perhaps, in their journey as well.
That's great. And tell us a bit more about the book.
Okay, book is about, I have the book. The book is
Yeah.
about this young Iranian, the upside down, sorry. So I gotta get used to keeping the book right side out, this side out. About an young Iranian woman who is sort of defiant. She sings in a country where music is forbidden. She loves music. She lives in this town, which back then was 7 days of horseback rides in the middle of desert.
Wow.
But she dreams of traveling. She's never seen much of the world, but have read about it, and has own. She's kind of defiant, and this defiance sometimes uh, brings her some trouble. But she goes on, and she's not afraid of trying new things and doing things that she feels just. Um, and for example, she wants to go and take her music lesson, and her husband wasn't there. Nobody's around to take her to this lesson, because back in the days, women had to be chaperoned even if they went to go, I don't know, grocery store. So she's afraid of walking into the street, but she overcomes her fear. She walks out, and she, of course, very afraid and whatever. But the fear doesn't stop her from doing what is she feels is right, which is going into the street. Later on, when Russians attack northern Iran, she feels the right, even though it is not, nobody endorses a woman to walk and go to the parliament and sign something or whatever. But she does that because she feels that's the just thing to do. So a fear, she doesn't have any superpower, but the superpower is in her. And again, that's another message I wanted to come across, that fear is no excuse. Women, young women, old women, we should stand up for ourselves a bit.
Definitely. I love that. Do you feel that her character has got part of your personality traits?
Absolutely, because there are a couple of things that, you know, I'm also a defiant person. I do things. The process is the process of writing has been for me very educational, because I wrote the story to tell the history of that time in Iran. And in the beginning, my emphasis, because I come from a technology background, I see technology changing lives, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. I just wanted, and I saw things that happened in Iran, the chasm that was created because of the modernization that came to Iran in the 20th century. That was the story that I wanted to tell. But then I work with, a book editor, mentor, wonderful, wonderful lady from United Kingdom as well, that sort of told me, okay, this is a good story, but you don't have a character. You don't have this. You don't have that. And she helped me with that. And one of the things that she said was that look into yourself and bring
Mm.
out what feels right to you, and that will feel right to your character. So Gohar has a lot of my traits. She's curious, as I am. I'm curious about everything. I have to open up every box. I have to, you know. So in that, I'm like a child. So she's curious, and she's not afraid. I traveled the world. In that trait, I traveled the world by myself. I went to China by myself. I went to the Indonesia. I traveled. So
Mm.
every time you put yourself out, it's you gotta get a little bit of courage. You're afraid. Of course, I was afraid. All of us are. But that didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do. When I came to United States, I was all by myself. I didn't know too many people. I came with, I don't know, $500 in my pocket or whatever. But
Amazing.
again, I I had the courage, and perhaps this is a courage of unknowns or whatever. But to do that, and in that I share that trait with Goha, my hero.
Oh,
Hopefully,
fantastic.
I gave her some good stuff to live by.
Yeah, yeah. And you include true stories in the book, don't you? Including those from your Russian great grandfather. Can you share one of those with us?
Oh, absolutely. But I didn't really share the stories as such as I shared the characters. For example, my my grandfather was. My family's from part of Azerbaijan now, that used to be part of Iran, then became part of Russia. And my grandfather, there my grandfather spoke a lot about Baku and the places in like that. So I took that from him, and I included in the book. My great grandfather, Russian grandfather, he was long dead when I was born. He was actually was assassinated in 1926, long
Oh my
before even my
goodness.
mother was born. But so we don't know anything firsthand from him. But of course, we heard the story about um, him. My grandmother used to play tar, for example, and he was a very, he was a very um, open-minded father, even though they lived in Iran. He still allowed her to play tar and just have that experience. So these sort of like anecdotes had made their way. So Goha plays tar, my grandmother played tar. So these are the little anecdotes that I brought into the book. But the stories are stories; they're all made up. So not all made up, but some made up. But yeah.
Yeah. So your book is such a great read and it's a really good companion for the solo traveler. I think especially if if you've got a long journey, so it's a great book to take with you. And it's dedicated
Yes.
to your grandmother and also your aunt, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Well, both of them I apologize, I get a little emotional, but
Oh,
my
don't
grandmother, both of them were very courageous women. They stood up for and then they were very kind. They loved, just some stories, and it's unfortunate, but my aunt, for example, both of them had this very big heart. Their houses were always they were mothers to their tribe, the
worry.
mothers to everybody. But one of the stories about my grandmother, for example, is that she was a pretty young woman. She was in her 30s. She had 5 children, and her husband was in another town, and she wanted to take her children and furniture and everything to that town. And this is during World War II, when Iran is occupied by forces, by Allied forces, and they took this a bus, because the bus could accommodate 5 kids and furniture and everything else. And then the bus broke down middle of desert.
Oh my
And
goodness.
my grandmothers, they had no other, choice. But she didn't panic. They just sat there and waited for another bus to come along and take them on, and it went fine. But the stories about her courage. She never gave up, even though she was a young woman in time of war in the middle of desert. But it never occurred to her that, oh, I'm gonna just be like a, I don't know, shrinking violet, start crying or something. She gathered her children. They stayed with the bus. They stayed by the road, and and then they made it. So they both of them are very courageous women, and they had lots of troubles in their lives, but they overcome them. So I have a lot of respect for the courage and for the big heart and for the what they did for me in my life. So that's why I dedicated the book to them.
Oh, I've heard that Iranians are some of the friendliest people that you can meet. And I once met an Iranian lady when I was in Georgia, and
Yes.
I'd hardly spoken to her, and she invited me to her house in Iran. She gave me her number. She said, "Next time you come to Iran, just message me and you can come and stay, and I will cook for you and show
Yes,
you
yes,
around."
yes, yes, yes.
Would you say that that's true of Iranian people? They are
Yes,
really friendly.
that's generally true about the Iranian people. They love guests. They love foreigners. My grandfather, when the day she didn't have a guest, he didn't in his house. He would. Uh, he would be upset. He would say, "Oh, what am I being forsaken by God for not having any guests?" And so the Iranian people, both men and women, are very, they love their guests. They love to entertain, and they're kind. They're mostly kind people. And of course, I mean, like any other country, there are not so good people there, but
Mm,
of course they are very kind.
but the majority are. That's good. I
Yes,
don't know that much about Iran. It is a country that I do want to visit, and I recently watched a documentary about a female journalist, and
yes, yes.
she had a lot of people in authority kind of following her and saying what she could record and what she couldn't record. And her general consensus was that it was still a very male dominated society. So, what misconceptions do you think people have of Iran and especially Iranian women?
Well, first of all, it is sort of like at least outside, it's there's a lot of there's obviously it's a sort of a paternalistic society, but Iranian women really do have a lot of power. And back in the 70s and 60s and 70s, many women worked. They still do, even though a lot of them have to wear veil, but they drive, they work. We have more. There are more Iranian doctors, female doctors, than there are male doctors. So
Oh,
it's not so.
interesting.
Iranian women are very much out and about. Yes, of course, the government tries to oppress them. The government tries to bring in all this draconian laws. You have to wear a veil, and there is a general oppression on everybody. But it's not. Um, but despite that, Iranian women are very strong. They're not giving up. They are out there. They are going to school. They are working. They are helping each other. So, and they are all the all the time. They are in internet. And even though government, it's sort of like a whack-a-mole. A whack-a-mole. That the game
Oh,
that
yeah.
they do something. The government suppresses them and they come out somewhere else. So it's the spirit of resilience, I would say. So for a traveler, I would say, of course, it's an oppressive country, so there's a oppression by the government. I just met a young man that who had been in Iran, and he also liked Iran, loved Iran, and but he was arrested by the government for some unknown reason, whatever. So government is of course very oppressive. Um, and as far as women traveling, I would say it's not um, any worse than any other Middle Eastern countries. I've been in Cairo and I've been in Marrakesh. In general, if you go and look at something, it's okay. Nighttime is always a problem, as you know.
Mm,
It's women don't go out alone. Whether or not it's in Tehran, of course, Tehran is a little bit more because of the government and because of the society. So you don't go out at night by yourself, unless you're in a Western kind of hotel. So there are restrictions for women traveler, but this restriction again comes partially because of society and partially because of the government. So uh, if you have a friend there, by all means they can help you and take you around and things like that. So it's not the easiest place to travel. I agree. So, but at the same time, maybe hopefully one day will be a little easier.
yeah. Do you feel like things will change, or do you think it might take a long time and it's just going to be?
I'm an optimistic person. So I would say, I like to see things changing at least partially
Mm,
before I die. So I can go back. I haven't been in Iran for 40 years since the revolution.
yeah.
So, uh, you know, uh, I like to see at least some freedoms restored. We are not going to expect a full American or a British type of democracy in Iran just yet. Maybe in a few decades or whatever, but certainly not now. But that doesn't mean hopefully a new government doesn't come into power that gives people a little bit more ability to move about, to wear whatever they want, to get jobs and and also help the economy. And it's my hope, and also my hope as well for the peace in the Middle East and peace in the world is that to have a more benign. And I'm not going to get into politics; it's none of my business. But it's humanity. You got to have humanity in your country and outside of your country.
Yeah, definitely. And before we start wrapping up, is there anything else that you would like to add about your book?
No, I just it's a fun book to read. I hope that it's well written. I have had help again, as I said, with editors and things, and it takes a village. Again, that's another thing that I learned. It's not as much as the writing itself is a solitary endeavor. It's like you need people to help you edit it and research it and all of things like that. But I hope that people read it and enjoy it. And if there's a bad review, send it to me. If it's a good review, put it on Amazon.
So where can people go to find out more about you and your amazing book?
Okay, so people can go to I have a website, afarin.net, easy to remember, afarin.net. But the book also has its own website. These days is easy. It's called Silence Whisper. They can go to the book. The book is on sale on Amazon, so they can go on Amazon, download. And it's on sale both in the paperback form and also in the electronic form. It's also on sale on some bookstores in America for now. Barnes and Nobles is carrying the book, and I'm happy that that's the case. We're trying to get it into Waterstones in UK because there are some people from UK who have expressed interest in that. Hopefully they'll be everywhere. But for now, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and please go on the website and download the sample if you like, and hopefully you'll be a good reader. You'll be a reader of my book.
Congratulations on the book, and thank you so much for joining me today, and I wish you every success in the future, Afarin.
Thank you very much for having me.
And you can find out more about Afarin and her book at her website www.afarin.net, and I'll be back next week. In the meantime, don't forget to download the Girl About the Globe app, which you can find on Google Play and Apple iStore. Thanks for listening to our Girl About the Globe podcast, making solo travel easier for you. Find everything that you need for your solo travels at girlabouttheglobe.com, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.